In this module, we will be hearing about the National Fire Danger Rating System, the NFDRS. The outputs generated by the NFDRS are used to guide fire management decisions at all levels, but more importantly, when used in combination with pocket cards, these fire danger values relate directly to firefighter safety. They inform our situational awareness by revealing trends and factors of the fire environment that might otherwise remain hidden. We will now hear directly from a fire and fuels analyst at the National Interagency Fire Center in Boise, Idaho.
From firefighters to the highest level decision makers, we interact with the National Fire Danger Rating System, and in places like the Lake States and Alaska, the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System, and some other related products throughout our jobs. The place where you're most likely to have a direct interaction with the Fire Danger Rating System is when you see the smoky sign. So those adjective classes from low to extreme, those are fire danger rating outputs, and we see them all the time. So fire danger is really baked into a whole bunch of things, even if we don't talk about it. That decision by the National Multi-Agency Coordination Group to send or keep air tankers at a particular air tanker base or shift resources from one geographic area to another, that's tied in part to fire danger rating. Those are big parts of the conversations we have at the National Interagency Coordination Center, is to try to assess where we've been, where we're at, and where we think we're going to go, using those NFDRS outputs as our tools to help support those decisions. So at the highest levels, we're using that for preparedness, decision, and resource allocation. At the local level, you may use that for a little more specific decision making, such as a staffing decision for the weekend. At the lowest level, the firefighter can use that fire danger information to help him or her have a better sense on how to relate the current conditions to what the potential activity could be. Fire danger rating as a concept is really just a science-based method by which we can measure environmental conditions and have those correlated to actual or predicted fire outcomes. Fire occurrence and fire impacts. It's important for us to recognize that there's other valid systems besides our national fire danger rating system that we principally use in the United States. There's also the Canadian Forest Fire Danger Rating System, which is used extensively in the Lake States of the United States, as well as in Alaska and of course Canada. Starting about 50 years ago, under the leadership of the Forest Service, there was a desire to develop a national rating system which would use common principles, be based in science, and have consistent outputs that we could use to represent the array of conditions across the country. When people think about the National Fire Danger Rating System, they tend to focus on specific outputs like burning index or the energy release component, but really the system itself is broader than that. It includes our observational network, remote automated weather stations, for example. It includes our fire danger operating plans, the thresholds at which we set our adjective rating levels, the fire danger pocket card, for example. All of those things collectively really comprise the National Fire Danger Rating System. The National Fire Danger Rating System, it's got some outputs that are standard. We've got ignition component, spread component, energy release component, and the burning index. So each of those measures specific things, has particular applications for which each of those is especially well suited. Those are those outputs that we talk about. But really the intent is not just to produce a burning index with a number. The intent of the National Fire Danger Rating System is to apply that information to help us make better decisions, readiness decisions that will better prepare us for what could potentially happen, make better decisions about how we ultimately respond to a fire before we actually get there and see what we've got on the ground. There's real progress being made to ensure that every field level unit is part of a fire danger operating plan, which has those analyses completed, identifies those decision points where you're going to do your management differently, and has products like staffing index, dispatch and response levels, preparedness levels, has those decisions tied, at least in part, to these actual measures of our fire environment. The NFDRS outputs can be related to firefighter safety by first understanding what each of those things mean. So we've got ignition component, which is basically a measure of how likely it is that we can have an ignition that requires action. We've got spread component, which is a measure of how fast a fire could burn under these conditions. We've got the energy release component, which is really a measure of how hot a fire can burn. In a way, it's a good indicator of how difficult it will be to control a fire. The burning index is kind of a measure of how difficult it would be to contain a fire. So it's a good measure when you're trying to figure out what your readiness capacity needs to be and what that initial response might look like until you actually get somebody on the fire where they can start making some tactical and fire behavior-based decisions. The most important place where a field level firefighter would interact with fire danger rating is in the daily announcement of what the rating value is for that unit's selected index. So in places where rapid spreading fires are common, that unit may have picked burning index as a decision index of particular note, and on a daily basis, over the radio or posted down at dispatch, they're going to tell you what the burning index is for that unit. So that's good. You need to understand and hear that, but you can't really relate that because you don't necessarily know whether a burning index of 45 is bad or good if you're not from that unit. The fire danger pocket card is the other place where you can interact with fire danger and interpret that. So if you're not from the unit, or even if you are from the unit, you can look at that fire danger pocket card. Every unit should have one, and every firefighter should be provided with one. And that shows both the typical array of fire danger conditions, say energy release component or burning index over the course of a season, and even the worst fire danger conditions that have arisen over a historical period. So by looking at that set of graphical outputs and knowing what today's actual fire danger value is or what tomorrow's forecasted value is, you can relate where you are on that spectrum of expected activity and outputs. Fire danger pocket card also has a lot of really good information in the lower right-hand corner where local managers and firefighters have looked at historical outcomes and kind of correlated those to fire danger thresholds in particular. So when you're not from the unit, looking at that stuff in the lower right-hand corner can give you really good insights about the kinds of things that make that place unique, both in terms of potential for troublesome fire behavior or typical fire behavior. If you're from the unit, you should use that pocket card to brief yourselves and your incoming forces because it provides kind of a structured visual cue to help explain that fire environment on a daily basis and on a seasonal basis.
Utilizing fire danger rating information can improve your situational awareness and help you anticipate the possibilities within your fire environment. Remember, when it comes to firefighter safety, fire danger is more than just a number.